Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation, Waller here with you. It's Tuesday, so, Taco Tuesday. You know what? Taco Tuesday would be a lot better if it weren't a Tuesday. Maybe like Taco Friday, but then it wouldn't rhyme. So that kind of sucks. Uh, Other than of course tacos, which are always awesome. Okay, anyway, strange way to start a show, but that's what I do here. Welcome to the show. Um, I'm in a weird mood. I'm excessively tired, and I don't know why. So it's gonna be an interesting show. Uh, got a couple of Trump stories, some ridiculous stuff, including Donald Trump versus Scaramucci. The feud continues. We also have Jared and Ivanka getting ripped on social media. I love it. Um, then we've got some, we got disastrous news, of course, when it comes to the economy. We have two steel plants that are laying off workers, so that's awful. Uh, and it's happening, of course, in my backyard. Not literally, of course, but uh, near where I live. So that sucks. Um, then we're gonna go to Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris, uh, basically, the mask has slipped, and it is revealed who Kamala Harris really is. So, guys, if some of you, I know maybe not very many, but some of you, if you're fans of Kamala Harris, you're gonna want to hear this because this is factual information, not a personal attack, but it's information, it's stuff that she has said before, and it's positions that she actually holds. And so we're going to show you who Kamala Harris is. And I think ultimately, if she becomes president, who she would actually serve. So there's that. Then we have John Delaney and his failing campaign. I want to talk about that. Uh, yeah. And then, of course, we have Bernie Sanders in his criminal justice proposal. That was a story from yesterday. So no, not that she's just a cop, guys. I'm seeing your chats. Um, Not just that she's a cop. We already knew that, but who she really serves. So we'll talk about that as we get into the show. But please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very very helpful if you can do so. Also very helpful if you can become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation. So look, Patreon, it allows us to continue doing what we're doing. Yesterday, I was in a meeting after the show with a rep that I had with the network, and basically we were talking about how the demonetization. So there are channels that are getting auto demonetized whenever they put up a video. So that happened to me yesterday. Um, what is it? About 4 out of 6 videos yesterday were instantly demonetized. 3 have been approved over review. So that's still about 50%. And I still have reviews out on 2 other videos that have actually done really well. So obviously, all that revenue is gone. It's missing, right? So look, you can't run a show like that. You can't run a show where half your revenue just disappears until somebody deigns to go and review your video and say, "Oh, that's actually okay." Because by the time it gets reviewed, all your views are gone. There's nobody else watching it. So that's the problem here. That's why I'm asking you, patreon.com/TYTNation, $1, $2, whatever. We just need as many of you to sign up as possible. Again, it doesn't have to be that much. It can be as low as $1. And, just it adds up. Believe me, it does. We get 1,000 of you signing up for at least $1 or whatever. Then that's going to make a huge difference in being able to continue doing this channel as demonetization continues to get worse. And look, the ad revenue, or I should say, the ad model on YouTube is probably going to disappear within the next couple of years, if not sooner. So that disappears. There goes most of my revenue. And if we don't have you guys, if I don't have you guys to back me up, then we pack it up, we go home. Uh, well, I mean, I can't go home because I already am home. I don't actually have a studio. It's just a bedroom, which I will likely be renting out to someone. In that case, so again, that's worst case scenario. I hope that doesn't happen. But I'm just being 100% honest with you guys. Is independent media needs a lot of help. So if you can, please do. Okay. Anyway, all right. So with that said, let's get into the stories. Okay. We'll start out with a disaster story from Michigan. In this one, I think. All right. Steal yourself. Not good. Okay. Bad news for U.S. steel workers in Michigan and Indiana. So now it's being reported by Reuters that U.S. Steel, which is the name of a company, will reportedly lay off about 200 workers at a plant in Michigan. This is the E-Course plant, and that's just one of the two blast furnaces that are having their operations suspended by the U.S. steel manufacturer. Now, the other one, of course, is in Gary, Indiana. So now, what's happening, right? Why aren't these people going to work? Well, it turns out that low steel prices and reduced demand are making it so that they don't need steel. So they're going to obviously lay off these workers. Now, look, I've worked in the factory scene before, so I understand that somewhere around midsummer, usually there's a bit of a slowdown. But it is actually approaching the end of the summer. And so, that's not good. That's actually a little bit of uh, again, a little bit of a disaster, and not a good sign for the economy. And look, we were talking about a possible incoming recession related to the trade war with China, and actually, this I think plays into that. Now, Reuters doesn't talk about it, but I can definitely draw a couple of parallels here, or draw some lines in between. Um, and that, of course, they do say that the announcement comes amid the Trump administration's trade war with China. They do mention that, um, with the White House initially touting rises in domestic steel prices after the initial round of tariffs. So now the whole purpose, I guess, behind the tariffs is, oh, let's just make more steel at home. Okay, and for a short time, domestic steel prices did go up, and then it went down. Now, apparently, according to the article, domestic prices have fallen steeply as supplies improve and demand decreases. Now, why is demand decreasing? So now that's interesting, right? It's an interesting question. Well, that's also related to the trade war. Turns out farm machinery and automobile industries have scaled back buying domestic steel, which right now, thanks to the tariffs, is cheaper than foreign steel. So now, how is that related to the trade war? Well, there are farmers in the Midwest that no longer are looking into buying new equipment because since China has decided to buy, and this really affects a lot of soybean farmers, which is the biggest crop that we used to export to China. Well, now they don't have markets anymore, and they're like, why are we going to get new equipment or upgrade or replace our equipment if we don't have a market to sell to? Well, no, that'd be completely idiotic. So no, we're not going to buy new equipment. That again drives down demand for steel, and it has a ripple effect in the economy. Now, you also have the automobile industry, which is facing not quite as much of a similar thing, but they've also been impacted. You have, for example, GM that shut down its Lordstown plant just recently. So they're not making cars anymore. And there's lots of different factors, of course, involved in that. Rising SUV sales and truck sales, etc. And less sales of sedans, things like that. And of course, People are interested in, I think, foreign cars. So you've also got a lot of those factors. And not only that, but you've got huge personal debt. And I reported the other day that American personal debt is about $14 trillion, right? So that includes mortgages, student loans, credit cards, as well as auto loans, right? So the economy has shown some indications that it's going to go into a recession. So if you're worried about going into a recession, you don't go out and buy a new car. No, you hold on to your car for as long as you can until the economic outlook looks better. And look, what we're doing as an economy is coming off the Trump sugar high from the Trump and Republican tax cuts. So 83% of those tax cuts, the gains went right to the top 1%, to the richest corporations, etc. There were some temporary tax cuts for the middle class and the working poor, or I'm sorry, working class, and they didn't amount to nearly as much. People barely notice it on their paychecks. So they're not going out and buying new cars. Again, you got student loan debt. People aren't going out and buying new cars, new houses. So you have slowing demand on that. So all of this is related to the kind of policies that the Republicans are putting. So am I surprised that there is less demand, that there are more layoffs? Not at all. This is what happens when you have an economy that is running out of steam. And that's what you get when you're under Republican policies, where they think, well, they don't actually think this, but they want you to think that, oh no, tax cuts for the rich, they solve everything. It's going to trickle down to you. In reality, the only thing that's trickled into is their pockets. It comes from the rich and then gets given to the politicians in independent expenditures and campaign contributions to these politicians. So, and as a reward for lowering their taxes, it's a good return on investment. You give a few $1,000s or a couple $1,000,000 to a politician or political action committee, and you save billions of dollars over a decade. I mean, that is a great return on investment. That's where their money goes. Their money also went into into stock buybacks. In fact, here's the irony, right? And I know we're talking about steel, right? Irony, steel, whatever. Now, both Gary, Indiana, and the state of Indiana have given the U.S. Steel millions in tax breaks to restore the plant. Now, it was on the condition that the company keep at least 3,875 jobs at the plant. So, what are they doing? Well, they're also laying people off. Yeah. So, I guess now that they got the money, and we saw this with Carrier as well, well, that's it. I mean, you got the money, and now you're going to run. Well, that's what happens every single time. And so that's a disastrous hit to Indiana. It's a disastrous hit, of course, to Michigan as well, which has been under decline, even under Republican and Democratic administrations. You've had this issue with Michigan and the manufacturing base not being, or the, economic mix in the state not being diverse enough to be able to weather a hit. Great recession comes, and boom, the market just bottoms out, and so do the cities. So disaster, right? And here's the thing too. Let me give you one more amazing stat about how bad it's actually gotten. So one of the things that U.S. Steel does is that they do hot rolled coil steel. That's hot rolled coil, right? That the price of that has fallen 37% since its high in 2018. So it appears the tariffs really aren't working very well. Now, United Steelworkers official told the news service again that not only are they laying up people off in Michigan, as I mentioned, but also in Indiana, in Gary, Indiana. So look, this is again a disaster, absolute disaster. So my question is, do you guys feel like you're winning? Trump supporters in Indiana, Trump supporters in Michigan, are you winning yet? No, the only people that are winning right now are corporations. The only people winning right now are CEOs and executives and high-paid politicians who take bribes, legal bribes, from these corporations and executives. Those are the only people winning right now in the Trump economy. You are not. Sure, you could be like, well, look, I'm paying less taxes. Oh, right. But that doesn't really matter because I just got laid off. So there's that. And of course, being laid off, unemployment has a lot of new restrictions on it, or old restrictions, I should say. Just a lot of restrictions, period. You also have food stamps, which is being cut under the Trump administration to the tune of billions of dollars. So you have a safety net that is being shredded as we speak and has been shredded over the last, not just 3 years, but quite some time, actually, again, under both Republican and Democratic administrations, where you have a lot of people who, unfortunately, in the Democratic Party have been buying into Republican talking points about poverty, about what we're supposed to do, and think that, oh, no, if we just give people tax credits instead of giving them a hand up, well, then that's going to solve their problem. No, not at all. Not at all. So, again, disaster. This is what happens when you let, again, Republicans and corporate Democrats continue to run and to not have an actual progressive economy. You end up with disaster like this. And so I hope it gets better for the workers, but I don't really see that happening. All right. So let's go Trump versus the Mooch. All right. Now, President Trump is getting dunked on during his feud with former communications director Anthony Scaramucci. Now, Scaramucci, of course, is a former staffer that lasted about 11 days in the administration. Apparently, he was that bad. So now, Scaramucci is now in the process of reforming himself. Maybe he's got a book deal coming up, or wants to get a book deal, or maybe he wants to be on CNN or MSNBC, trying to cash in on being an anti-Trump Republican, which apparently makes a lot of money. So because of that, and because he's now anti-Trump, he's become a darling of the media, despite the fact, of course, that he and a lot of Republicans who are also anti-Trump, Joe Walsh is one big example of that, they still support the same policies as President Trump. And yet, they say, no, we're superior because we're not as openly mean. I mean, we think all the Trump's policies are fantastic, tax cuts for the rich, building a wall. Even Joe Walsh is like, yeah, build a wall. No, dude, you're the same as Donald Trump. You're just in a prettier wrapper. That's what that is. Now, Trump is, of course, angry at this massive betrayal by the Mooch. And he will not let this go unanswered, and he actually goes after him in the usual Trump fashion. On Twitter, he said this: "Nobody ever heard of this dope until he met me. He only lasted 11 days. Dope. Calling a dope a dope. Okay, anyway, there's a game of rope-a-dope going on here. Isn't there? I don't know. So, look, that's the usual thing that you've heard. We've heard this before, right? Every time Trump fires somebody or gets mad at somebody who used to work for him, he says the same thing. I never knew the guy. I barely knew him. Talked to him once. Not a good guy. Disaster. Well, in this one, it's kind of hard to do that, even though he still does, as you saw, he still says that. But everyone who has a brain thinks, wait a minute, he was your communications director. It's not as if he was the intern who brought you coffee and donuts, right? Or in this case, cheeseburgers and Diet Coke. He was your communications director. You looked at this guy and you said, no, that's going to be my communications guy. He's going to be in charge of our department and what the message that we put out. That's a big job. If he's such a dope, then why the hell did you hire him? I surround myself the best people. The best people. No, you know why? It's because Scaramucci did the one thing that was required. He kissed Trump's ass. And he was good at it. And so now that he's no longer in the administration, no longer has a job in the administration, and by the way, no longer has any prospects for getting a job since working for Trump is so incredibly toxic. Now, just now, he decides to start talking about how utterly incompetent the president is. And for doing so, the internet piled on. Actually, they piled on to Donald Trump. First, for, of course, going after Scaramucci. Now, I'm going to pile on to Scaramucci afterwards. After we're done with Trump. And let's start with Jody Moss, right? So she said, I remember when you said you knew him well, that he's a great guy and good friend. Now, suddenly you say you barely knew him and never really liked him much. The obvious Trump deflection, right? I remember when you said I only picked the best. Yet, how many of your picks have you thrown out and berated? By my count, so far, and I might be off a couple, I'm around 36. 36 former staffers either fired or resigned. There's better turnover numbers in fast food. Just saying. Toxic workplace. There's more. Robin Wilcox said you hired him, and he at least sounds like he knows what he's doing, and can't say the same for you. Yeah. Well, that's because Donald Trump's having a mental breakdown, or he's mentally incompetent. I'm just saying, 25th Amendment, right? Dr. Jack Brown said, imagine a president so emotionally insecure that he feels the need to bully a former staff member. It's a script from a dystopian film. Again, correct. And another case for the 25th Amendment. The president is literally unstable. Such a super, super thin skin. And he lashes out instead of actually doing what was supposed to be his job. Brooklyn Dad Defiant said, still ranting about a guy that you hired, a guy that only lasted 11 days. What does that say about you? Another good, excellent question. I don't know, I can speculate. But let's continue with the tweet here. Said, at least he didn't end up in jail like so many of the other winners. Oh, you mean like Michael Flynn? Oh, you mean like Papadopoulos? Or Michael Cohen? Never knew those guys. Barely talked to them. Right. Okay. Jay Relling says, why are you so bad at hiring people? Morton Overby also said this, never heard of the dope, the highly unstable nut job, the crazy incompetent fool, mental wreck. Made him White House Director of Communications. Only the best. Only the best. Okay, so as fun as this is, right? This is also disastrous. Because, remember, we need a functional government. This is a guy that's in charge of the government. This constant turnover and instability is really bad for the government long term. You thought it was dysfunctional before. No, it's worse. It's even worse. Another thing to consider, too, is that these people like look, there are people like Scaramucci, right? These people like him, they deserve to get dunked on, too. Because, again, they're not innocent. And unfortunately, the media is really failing to do that. Look, Scaramucci wanted to work for Trump. That's I mean, that's it right there. He made the choice to work for a president that is in obvious mental decline. Trump's been this way for a long time, right? Once you study who Donald Trump is and you go through and you see the things that he said within the last 10 years, within the last, and things that he's done within the last 15 years, right? And even longer, you realize and you come to the conclusion that he is not very smart. He is not a very stable genius. He's never been. Now, again, he's never been very smart, as I mentioned. But now, as of late, he's been in mental decline. And so you take somebody who was already not smart to begin with, and you add mental instability into that, but you get to be in a problematic situation, right? So now, what makes Scaramucci terrible is that only people who covet power are drawn to someone like that. Someone who's already stupid, easily manipulate. You can easily manipulate them, or you think that you can easily manipulate them. I guess in this case, um, and are in mental decline, right? I do not want to make it seem like Donald Trump's a victim, right? No, he's not. He's an idiot. He's an old school racist. He's a bully, misogynistic. He's always been that way. It's just now he's mentally wrong, right? Mentally off. But the people around him, as I said before, they're terrible people because they're essentially vultures. They are drawn to his stench of corruption. And what's funny is that afterwards, all of them swear that no, you guys don't understand. I never actually stood for that stuff. I was the adult in the room. I was trying to stop Donald Trump from his worst impulses. It wasn't us that were the bad people. No, we were trying to restrain him. We were doing good. Every one of them. Writing books, cashing in, going on CNN, MSNBC, and Scaramucci is just the latest one to do that. But make no mistake, there are no good people who choose to work in this administration. None. They're all terrible. And everyone that's left, by the way, and look, I can guarantee at some point, Kellyanne Conway, probably after Donald Trump loses, but maybe before, who knows, when the ship really starts going down and when defeat is obvious. Kellyanne Conway and people like her, they're going to make a break. And they're going to say, wasn't us. No, we were the adults in the room. Maybe I wrote the op-ed. Who knows who wrote the op-ed, right? And they're going to say, in a book where they make money or in a TV appearance, we were the lone wall against Donald Trump. We're the ones that kept him from doing the worst. Guaranteed, it's absolutely going to happen. And that's how this game is played. Suck up to Trump, get into his orbit, then get unceremoniously fired, and you still get a paid gig as a contributor or your own TV show or your own book deal. That's how these people get into power. That's how they ride their way into fame and fortune. And we got to shut them down and we got to call them out. We got to tell people who they really are. So Scaramucci, I'm not buying this. Oh, I'm a better person. It turns out I was wrong and I'm turning over a new leaf. You haven't turned anything over except a few dollar bills. And unfortunately, they're all like that. Okay. All right, moving on. Actually, let's go to Kamala Harris. So, all right. Now, the mask has finally slipped off Senator Kamala Harris. Now, this is during a recent big donor fundraiser. So now, this fundraiser, of course, follows a big slip in the polls after the recent Democratic debates. And after that, Harris has decided she would shed all progressivism and reveal what she really stands for. So, what am I referring to? This is a report in Bloomberg. On Sunday night, Harris attended a big money fundraiser in the Hamptons. Oh, fancy. So now Bloomberg's reporters kind of set the scene, and I love their description of this. He said, Teslas and Maseratis lined the street as Kamala Harris greeted guests, sipping drinks from plastic cups with her name on them, and eating cinnamon sugar donuts from Reasons at a fundraiser hosted by movie executive Jamie Petrikov and his wife Kelly. By the way, cinnamon sugar donuts sound amazing. kind of hungry right now, but anyway, um, during that event, she said some important things. Now, one of them is that it turns out that she's not exactly in favor of Medicare for all. According to comments provided to the Daily Beast for the Harris campaign, the senator told donors that Sanders' bill was one of a number of good ideas that she had signed on to over the years. But when she told what she told the donors was, I support Medicare for all. However, she added, but as you may have noticed, over the course of the many months, I've not been comfortable with Bernie's plan, the Medicare for all plan. So now, how can you say, I support Medicare for all, and then say, ooh, but the one plan that we have out that's actually Medicare for all, I'm uncomfortable with that? So now, Bernie's plan, again, is Medicare for all, is expanding Medicare and making it a single payer healthcare system. So what it does is that it covers a wider range of things than traditional Medicare, of course, and bans duplicative coverage, basically minimizing or essentially eliminating the role of health insurance companies. That's what single payer is. The government is the only payer, not provider of healthcare, but it's basically the only insurer. There's no insurance market, no private insurance market. It's just the government is your insurer. It pays the hospitals and it pays the doctors from money collected from your taxes. Simple, right? And it's actually a much more simpler system. And because it's more simple, it's actually more efficient and therefore cheaper. So it has power to negotiate with doctors. It has the power to negotiate with hospitals and pharmaceutical companies. That's how it's cheaper. And it has no overhead or very little overhead, no advertising budget, nothing, no executive bonuses, nothing. Your money goes to your care, and that's it. It's an incredibly efficient system. So now, if you are not for single payer, then you're not for the best option when it comes to healthcare. And no, so Kamala Harris says, I'm not for the best option. I'm for Medicare for all, but not Medicare for all. Okay, so let's explain, right? So now, establishment politicians, this is what they're doing, right? They are doing this thing where you call something Medicare for all and have it not be single payer, where it's actually still a multi-payer system or a public option. So their plan is we're going to have Medicare and we're going to have private insurance. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow Medicare to open up if you want to buy in. So you can buy into Medicare. Technically, anyone can. So it's Medicare for all if you want it. Now, that doesn't actually solve the fundamental problems in our for-profit healthcare system. As Ron Placone always loves to say, it's basically putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm or a bandage on a gushing wound. So that, again, it's not going to fix the problems of prices being too high. And it's also prone to politicians who get money from the health insurance industry voting to water it down. And that's sort of the biggest problem. That's the long-term issue with the public option system, is that you are going to have corrupt politicians that are saying, well, since we have these private insurance companies and we still get donations from these companies because they're still around, we're going to make sure they don't cover as much. And we're going to lessen the coverage as time goes by so that people, instead of buying into the public option, will just go back to straight out insurance until the government is able to get rid of that public option. And we're back to square one, where we continue to dominate the conversation and we continue to dominate the marketplace and make more and more money. That's the ultimate goal of these insurance companies when they push for a public option. They see it as, oh, it's a temporary setback, but don't worry, we'll still be able to go around and get back to where we are in control and we are making all the profit. So that's the problem, right? And so what Kamala Harris and these other politicians are doing on healthcare that are proposing that system is basically co-opting the good name of Medicare for all in order to push the public option. But there's more. Not only did she say, I'm not in favor of Medicare for all or a single payer plan, which is what Bernie's plan is, which, by the way, she never really supported. She's been back and forth. Oh, no, I support Medicare for all. Oh, turns out, no, I'm also open to keeping private insurance, etc. Back and forth, right? So now at least she's more open about that. And I've got a quote here from her campaign on that. But not only is she waffling on that or finally says no on Medicare for all, she also backed out of a climate debate. So now the reason that she backed out of that climate debate is, you're going to be shocked, so she could go raise money from large donors. Harris, according to the article, was the only candidate of the 9 who reached the threshold to participate in a climate change-centered forum on CNN. She's the only one to decline that invitation so far. She just said, not interested. No, I have a scheduling conflict. I actually need to go and raise money from large donors. So now, Sunrise Movement, who did a lot of great work pushing for this climate debate and all the activists pushing for this climate debate, because it's one of the most, if not the most important thing, because nobody's going to be arguing about healthcare if we're all dead from the effects of climate change, right? So there is that. That is kind of important. Now, Sunrise Movement said in a tweet, we need a leader who prioritizes the future of humanity over rubbing elbows with millionaires and billionaires. Now, if that's the case, though, how would she make money if she didn't serve the interests of the rich and powerful? How is she going to make all that money? I mean, she's certainly not getting it from regular people. Majority of her donations actually do come from, at least her large donations, come from wealthy groups. So now, Harris has also received a lot of criticism from not only that decision, but the other decision as well, which launched her press secretary, Ian Sams, into spin mode. So now Sams on Twitter said this: she has her own healthcare plan. So yeah, not a secret she isn't running on Bernie's plan anymore, as we kind of figured she would do. Sams also told the Daily Beast that Harris was, quote, and the reason was hearing from lots of voters real concerns, specifically about proactively abolishing private insurance, the 4-year transition, middle-class tax hikes, and so she came up with her own plan to adjust for those for that. Frankly, is better than his. Oh no, her plan's better. Oh, because it keeps private insurance. Hey, that's like your opinion, man. My question for you is, who is it better for? Is it better for the big donors in the health insurance industry that would get wrecked by a single payer plan? Here's the reality, right? I know that there's this talking point that, centrists think they're so clever when they come up with this. Like, oh, people like their insurance company. Why would you ever want to get rid of their insurance company when people love it? No. Here's the thing. Nobody likes their insurance company. People like their doctors. People like their hospitals, right? At most, there are people out there that tolerate their insurance company, right? Especially, and I think the reason for that is that they haven't really had to use it in the way that some people or most people have, right? That don't like private insurance, and so let me kind of break that down a little bit more. So, the average, I guess, middle class family or upper middle class family who has private insurance, either through their work, they've got a decent work, employer sponsored plan. Which, by the way, single payer would eliminate those employer sponsored plans, which would free up both the worker and the employer from needing private health insurance. So the worker will be able to go anywhere they want without having to worry about losing their health insurance if they lose their job or decide they want to go to a different job with different pay, etc. And the employer would save tons of money and maybe would funnel some of that money towards its workers if it's a workplace worth their salt, right? So there's that. But most people either they have their employer sponsored plans and they're happy with it because their employer is a good employer that covers a majority of that, and we see less and less of that every day. But there are those good companies that do exist that pay a lot for their employer sponsored plan, and that's great for them. But for everybody else who doesn't have that, or who is underinsured, or who has had to ever deal with a health insurance company that wants to deny their claims, gets suddenly sick, etc., or is on a junk plan, well, they're not very happy with the insurance companies. And that's sort of the disconnect that we have. People who are okay with their insurance, either they haven't had to use it or they've got a good plan through work, versus everybody else. Those are the people who are like, oh, I don't know about Medicare for all. Oh, my taxes might go up. Yeah, but in reality, yes, taxes will go up a little bit. But think of the savings: no premiums, no copays or deductibles. That's a net savings. A more efficient program, which is Medicare, saves you money. It saves you money. And if you have that employer sponsor plan, it also saves your employer money if you're actually worried about that, which you may not be. And in this case, no argument is really going to help out unless you suddenly end up losing your job. So there's that. But look, anyway, again, um, most people they like their doctor, and so this disingenuous argument against that, and against Medicare for all, saying that people want to keep their middleman essentially that comes in, takes their money, and then takes even more money in premiums, copays, and deductibles, etc. So now you guys know how single payer works. You know why it's more efficient. Those of you are paying attention, and so you know why it's actually ridiculous to not be in favor of a single payer plan. Now, as far as Kamala is concerned, the reason that she's not in favor of single payer is, of course, the people that she talked to are health insurance executives, the same people that she's raising money from. So this is who Kamala Harris is. I mean, this is her true face. She has been revealed. She has revealed herself to the world. She shows us that she not only works for her own economic interests, but also the interests of her donors. She's the same as any other establishment politician. And if you didn't know before, then that's okay. I understand. You guys are busy. But now that you've heard this report and you know the facts, well, now you can make an informed decision of whether or not you will still continue to support Kamala Harris over someone like a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Okay. Moving on. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take a real quick break. We'll come back. We've got John Delaney, which is great. I always hit that wrong button. And I always hit that wrong button. Damn. Okay, I need a producer. Patreon.com/TWTNation. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so we'll come back with John Delaney, and then we have maybe Bernie Sanders or maybe Jared and Ivanka. We'll see what happens. So we'll be back. Stay right here around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. TBT Nation. Jeff Walls over here with you. Okay, so I have one super chat that I want to read. Jedi Protector says his ad blocked, but he's a little bit to help out. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Jedi Protector. I appreciate that. You guys, again, you're you're the reason I'm here. You're the reason I can continue to do this and to produce the show. As poorly of a job as I do sometimes. Okay, anyway, so let's go right into the next story here, and that is John Delaney. Oh boy. Oh, and please like and share the stream already. That helps out greatly. Right. So former congressman and presidential candidate John Delaney is not doing very well. So recently, it's been reported that he put about $24 million of his own cash into his doomed presidential run. So why is that important? Well, what's important is what he got from it. So what did he get for all that money? A grand total of 11 people coming out to see him at a recent campaign event in Iowa. And it's not just 11 people. At other events, there was 12 people, 15 people at max. Wow. So the Guardian puts it this way. Delaney is a part of a group of white middle-aged men, well, I'm one of those, who are forging ahead with their increasingly chaotic presidential campaigns in spite of a collective lack of support. Fun. So you look at Delaney, Hickenlooper, Swalwell, and all the others, and you literally can't tell them apart. I can't tell them apart. Being a white, middle-aged man, I can't tell them apart. That's bad. So now you can't tell them apart on policy either, right? They're all centrist, milquetoast candidates. They have no bold policy positions. They don't really do a whole lot, okay? So that's why they poll between 0 and 1%, respectively. And in Iowa, Delaney is polling about 1%, despite all of his work. And that's not for lack of trying. Now, according to The Guardian, he's made 34 separate visits to the state in 2 years. He's been running since 2017. Now, this most recent trip was the first of 3 in August, and he's held quite a few events. In fact, on Thursday alone, Delaney was scheduled to hold 5 different events in the space of about 9.5 hours. So that, of course, those events are all filled with about the tens of people that have come to hear his specific pitch, right? So now his pitch, and I'm going to read this, is that the 2 most important questions in 2020, he said, are who can beat Trump? Well, just about everybody. And who is the best leader for this country at this moment in time? He said, I believe I'm the right answer to those questions. Wrong. He's polling at 1%. And the reason is, of course, he's too busy telling people what they can't actually get and promises little to no actual change. Let me give you an example here. So at the Rustic Brew in Hampton, right, Delaney held an event. It was in a really small room, tiny room, with a painting of a reindeer on one wall. Now, when he was doing this event, with about, again, 10 people or so, Delaney was almost immediately interrupted by a man wearing a Vietnam cap. Now, the man complained about the veterans' hospitals. Now, look, we got a problem with veterans' hospitals, of course. Delaney said, oh, don't worry. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow veterans to visit a wider range of hospital. Instead of fixing the VA, we're just going to do the Republican plan of letting you go to different hospitals for care. Now, what was the man's response? He said, that's the plan I'm opposed to. Oops. So now what he's doing in a broader sense is basically he's running on, I can beat Trump. I can beat Trump. Well, yeah, again, the top 4 Democrats in some of the most recent polls, and I gave you the most recent poll yesterday, where you had the top four Democrats, Biden, Warren, Sanders, and Harris, all beating Donald Trump by a fairly comfortable margin. In fact, you had Biden at 50 to Trump's 38, Sanders at 49 to Trump's 39, and then Warren, I think, was 46 to Trump's 39, and then you had Harris at 45-39. So fairly comfortable margins, especially for the top two, Sanders and Biden, which I don't understand why Biden is that high, but I don't know, man. Maybe something to do with Obama. I'm not sure. So, yes, those Democrats will absolutely crush Donald Trump as long as he continues to stay as unpopular as he is. Now, Delaney, making that argument does not actually help you when you look at that context. What you need is a vision. Delaney has no vision. He basically has milquetoast vision. I'm going to barely tweak some legislation. I'm going to tweak Obamacare and try to do something. Wow. You're really inspiring a lot of confidence. I mean, barely any change, right? Now, he also says, look, I'm the only one that can pass legislation because I can reach across the aisle. You ain't reaching across the aisle to Republicans. Why? Because Republicans, if you guys even can look back just a few years before Donald Trump, right? Near the end of Obama's, his administration. Remember the words Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland was a Supreme Court pick that was blocked by Mitch McConnell for over a year. It's not because Merrick Garland was some crazy leftist. No, he was, by all accounts, a very centrist, pro-corporate judge. Not good enough for Mitch McConnell. Not good enough. Not good enough for Republicans. So that's what we're facing right now. Obstinate Republicans who, unless you go 100% their way, will not deal with you. Mitch McConnell calls himself the Grim Reaper. Are you seriously? And Delaney thinks, no, I can work with that guy. Grim Reaper. I want to work with him. You know what's not selling me? Your ability to work with Mitch McConnell. I don't want you working with Mitch McConnell. Why? Because Mitch McConnell has terrible ideas and is a terrible person. Anything that Mitch McConnell is going to be in favor of enthusiastically is not something that is generally going to help the American people. It's going to help him. It's going to help his donors. So, and look, again, Republicans don't believe in government. They want to drown it in a bathtub. So Delaney is laboring under a false notion that there are Republicans out there that are willing to compromise to get big programs passed. Not at all true. They can't. They won't. In fact, during the Obama administration, we have seen Republicans tank their own bills in order to own the libs. That's what's going on. That's why you have to crush them at the polls. Not literally, right? But you beat them at the ballot box. You get more votes. And how do you do that? You have an exciting ticket at the top. People turn out. They vote for the presidential ticket. And then, very likely, they vote down ticket as well. But you got to get them out to the polls. You're not getting people out for Delaney at all. Again, Delaney, very unexciting, very milquetoast, very centrist, and ironically, very proud of it. In fact, he told The Guardian that if he could change one thing about his campaign, he would actually have plugged his centrist credentials earlier. He said, the kind of sharp contrasts I'm making now, and he's referring to his fight with Bernie Sanders, I would have made them earlier. And you know what? You would still be at 0.3% nationally. That's his aggregate polling. It's pretty clear that no one is interested in your vision. At least, you have the top three, right? Of the top three Democrats, the top three candidates in this primary, two of them would actually introduce quite a bit of change over the system. And one of them, of course, is Biden, who, again, people love him because he was Obama's VP, but that's about it. But even Biden says, I'll introduce a little bit more change than John Delaney. Oh, well done. Thank you. I appreciate that. No. Delaney, he needs to get a clue, and drop out already because no one is interested. And if he keeps doing this campaign, loaning his campaign millions and millions of cash in cash, he's eventually going to get him, make himself broke. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. Okay. All right. I guess let's just do end on a fun story. All right. So the internet recently blasted the Trump family, specifically Jared and Ivanka, for their incredible incredible vacation that they have taken on their break from the White House. Break from what, you ask? I don't really know. They don't do anything. That's the picture, of course. Oh, it's a nice little vacation. Again, vacation from what? I don't know. Do they work? I don't know. What do they actually do if they do work? Again, they're supposed to be advisors to the president, but ain't nobody listening. Trump ain't listening to nobody else but Trump. And so, who are they advising? What are they actually doing there? Well, we all know the answer: nepotism, of course. Again, well, okay, let's be fair, right? Let's go back and let's look at what Ivanka actually does, right? So she's actually used the office of the presidency, along, with her dad, of course, to help her get access to meetings with high-level diplomats, high-level officials. In one such case, the Chinese president, get access to him and get special deals and breaks for her own personal business. That's what she uses office of presidency for. That's what she does. So she is out there trying to basically do that for herself and her own gain. I guess maybe to be fair to Kushner, he has pushed a couple of good ideas, essentially some, pardons, criminal justice reform, to be 100% fair. But as far as doing anything else, I mean, Ivanka said she was going to empower women workers. How so? She hasn't really done anything. She hasn't really prevented her dad from doing any of the terrible stuff that he said, that she said she was going to stop him from doing. And as I said before, she's basically used her position in the White House to further her own business causes. That's basically it. So now, of course, following this tweet, you had a couple of people on social media that weighed in. The girl has no president said simply grifters. Fair enough. Emergency Party Chihuahua says nobody in your family has worked a day in their life. Bringing cake to the clan potluck doesn't count. Ouch. Let's see. You also have Eugene UMD saying simply nepotism. She's basically nepotism Barbie. That's what I like to call her. Rick Fenn says everybody works harder than those two morons, and leadership matters. Says what do they actually work on besides vacationing and traveling? We see lots of photo ops, but nothing to do with work. You should fire them immediately and make sure to revoke their security clearances. Now, of course, obviously that will never happen. In a normal administration, they would be fired. Actually, no, scratch that. In a normal administration, they wouldn't be part of that administration. And again, Eugene points it out, it's nepotism. And maybe perhaps kind of the fact that Trump would totally date his own daughter. He's actually said that, yes, he has. But again, as I mentioned too, it's also doing things that will enrich the Trump family, the Trump dynasty. And that's what it's about. Despite being 100% unqualified, like their father, they happen to be there. And they're also a joke, again, like their father, except for this joke, or collection of bad jokes, not only isn't funny, it's also hurting the country. Oh, there you go. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already, or subscribe, and subscribe. That also helps. Consider becoming a patron, supporting independent progressive media. Patreon.com/TYT Nation if you like the stuff that we do. All right, guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Night, Nation. See y'all tomorrow.